Hey everyone, welcome to episode 255 of the Ceres Podcast. This episode was meant to be a Q&A, an AMA as they call it. Ask me anything or ask Stelios anything. But if I'm being honest, I lost momentum along the way. The questions drifted, time moved on, and it just didn't land how I planned. And also, I lost track of all the questions that were sent to me. For a person who has servers and hard drives everywhere, I put it in my notes and I lost track of all of it. So I apologise. We will reschedule the Q&A and next time I'll keep on track. Jamie and Charlie were actually going to come on that podcast and ask me those questions. So we thought instead of forcing it, we thought we'd take a different route and we turned it into a proper conversation about the industry. So we will reschedule it for another time and I promise I will keep on track. If this is your first time listening to Charlie and Jamie, Charlie is from Frydales in Leicester and Jamie Russo is from Redcloak Fish Bar up in Stonehaven. Both are operators of their own business. They both run their shops day to day and they are both past winners of Dry White Young Frier of the Year award. I think I probably said that wrong, but that's the gist of it. This episode goes off script deliberately. Rather than theory, this is operator to operator. What's sort of happening right now? You know, are shops making money? Are they getting busier? Are they quieter? What's going on with fish prices? That is completely different between Jamie and Charlie. What's going on with staffing, delivery apps, menus, new species? How are new species landing with customers? And ultimately, does a traditional fish and chip shop model still work in today's market? That's an interesting topic. So I think we hit a lot of great topics. It's just a good conversation between three people, nothing too heavy. Before we get into it, a quick one from us at Ceres. Cleaning is one of those things that get completely overlooked right up until it becomes a problem. We've built a simple system around three core products: a heavy-duty degreaser, a heavy-duty professional descaler, can't be non-professional of course, and a non-caustic deep fry cleaner designed specifically for the fish and chip trade. Each one does a very specific job, breaking down grease, removing limescale, and keeping fryers running clean without damage or downtime. No overlap, no confusion, just three heavy-duty products that matter in a commercial fish and chip setting. The other thing is free mainland UK shipping. Order it today, get it tomorrow. No extra cost, no headache. And 99% of all orders that are ordered before 2 o'clock get there tomorrow. So visit ceres.shop, have a look at all of our cleaning solutions, order all of them because why not? Hey, you might as well. Next week, we've also got a Pod Squad episode lined up. Everyone's been busy behind the scenes putting it together, and I think it would be an absolute strong one. You know, Mark's coming with his great ideas, David's coming with his chatter, Kelly telling us all off, no doubt, and David Miller with his market update. So for now, let's get into today's episode with Charlie and Jamie. Hey everyone, welcome to the Ceres Podcast.
Hi, Stel.
Hello, how are we doing?
Jamie, Charlie, great to have you both on. To give the listeners a bit of a backdrop, this was meant to be Ask Stelios Anything or Ask Me Anything. I did invite you guys on early on to ask those questions. However, I lost track of all the questions. I lost track of time. A lot of things happened from then till now. So I just thought, let's just use the time to actually just do a normal podcast and have a bit of a first quarter. Well, it was meant to be a first quarter update, but we're into the second quarter now. So
it only took us 6 months to find a date we can all do.
This is true. Unfortunately, I'm the easy one here. This was Jamie's fault. Everything was Jamie's fault.
It always is. It always is.
Someone's got to work for a living.
Someone has to. That isn't me. So, guys, thanks for coming on. What I want to start off this podcast with is how has trade been so far? Obviously, this question didn't mean a lot 3 months ago, but now we're in May. How's it been? Jamie, if you want to go first.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The start of the year started off brilliant. I was actually quite excited. January was looking good. Then the whole of Scotland got covered in snow. And for the first time in my whole 3 years in business, I've actually had to shut the shop because of the weather. So we had to shut the shop for 2-3 days. And it took a little bit of time to get people back in because the snow took quite a while to clear. But still, January was up despite that. A lot of deliveries because no one wanted to get out, and our delivery drivers were happy to brave the elements. But yeah, February again was up, and we started to see it a little bit quieter in March, April time. But again, people don't have the same money to spend. I think that comparing it to last year where we had a fantastic year, we've seen it a little bit down. But overall this year we've been up. And yeah, we've just had the bank holiday Monday, which was a crazy busy day across the board. So yeah, no, it's been a relatively good start to the year.
Charlie boy?
Yeah, mine's been pretty similar. I think January and February for me were pretty strong, better than I thought. For me, I've got one shop that's doing particularly well, and the other shop's just sort of doing what it's always done, if not down a little bit. But my shop within the petrol station has been up on last year. January, February really strong. Start of March dropped off a little bit, but then April was strong again. Few things I've noticed that lunches are up. Lunch trade stagnated for a few years, to be honest, but now they're really, really quite strong. I couldn't really put a finger on why that is. Being in a petrol station obviously helps my lunches as well. We get a lot of tradesmen, farmers coming in. The petrol station I'm at's got a lorry filling station as well, so we get a lot of drivers in that way. Deliveries are where we've found some more volume. They've picked up quite a bit recently. Couldn't necessarily put my finger on why, but it seems to be that the walk-ins have sort of stagnated a bit, but any extra customers we get in are on delivery. Jamie said his bank holiday was busy. Mine was terrible. So just, I think it's very location dependent on how trade is for people at the moment. So good start to the year, but could always be better is what I'd say.
Would you say, both of you, that footfall is up, or is it just turnover, or is it both? Because obviously if your prices are higher than this time last year, you're going to see more money, obviously.
Yeah, for me, I've got roughly the same footfall, slightly higher turnover because we had a small increase on the fish. Not increased the price of anything else, just the fish. So footfall's up a tiny, tiny amount, but 5%, it could easily just go down just as fast. So I wouldn't say it's up. I'd say it's exactly the same as last year. But obviously, that's not a bad thing. If, we've increased prices and volume stayed the same, that's a bit of a win for me, actually.
Yeah. Jamie?
Yeah, for me, the footfall, especially at the start of the year, was up. It's probably a little bit lower March, April time, but the difference in prices has negated any loss there. But definitely starting to see a lot more volume coming through now, which tends to be what we see as soon as you get the sunshine out, which is a rare sight in Scotland. That there is more people going about. The tourists start coming about, and the orders do seem to increase.
Yeah. Well, how are you seeing your lunchtimes, Jamie? Charlie said his are doing better than expected.
Yeah, no, definitely the start of the year, it was pretty strong. We're just along from the school, so the school trade is a big part of our lunchtime, but they're away on to study leave now, which sees our lunchtimes pretty much drop by half. So it's trying to get them workers back in, the working people to get back in. We're not in the best location for that because we're not in the centre of town. We've not got the same passing trade at lunchtime, but it's just pushing out to companies and businesses to try and get that elevated a little bit.
One thing I found is that for the most part, anyone sort of, let's say, older who has lots of free time, or someone who's working like a lunchtime tradesman or whatever, they have a very fixed set of time when they want to eat. And if the shop is full of school kids, they generally just avoid the place. They will go anywhere else. So one thing we did, because we had, I worked my dad's shop, which was near a school, and we'd have two queues. We'd have one for just normal customers, like just non-school kids, shall I say, and then one for school kids, because school kids are loud, they're messy, they're annoying, they take up loads of space, they're unorganized, they're unruly. Whereas you just let, 70-year-old Tony who just wants to get a couple of mini fish and chips, or you want to get the tradesman who just wants to get everyone's food. They've only got a set amount of time. And so I always wondered if that, it worked for us. And I don't know if it could work for you, Jamie, but.
Yeah, no, it's definitely it's not like a set like here's a queue. But if we see someone who's not a school kid come in, their order's taken, because generally we've got the school kids' meals ready. They're already boxed up because again they don't have a lot of time either. It's very much just here's take the money. Here's your food. See you later. And when we do see your average customer come in, it is right. What can we get you? Get that on as quick as possible, because we know everyone is so tight for time at that lunchtime.
Yeah, no, I remember when Zohab came on the podcast a while back, and he said that he really wanted to appeal to younger kids, to get younger kids in. Oh, actually, was it on the podcast? Was it when we visited him, Charlie? I can't think. I'm not sure.
It could have been either.
I'm not sure. It could have been either. Yeah, and he had this like a couple of tables in there, and he really wanted to encourage younger people being in there. And I just thought, I actually told him it's like an absolute mistake. You do not want kids hovering, because otherwise it does become a loud social club, and families do not like that. And you see a lot of the likes of McDonald's and KFC, they try and stamp down on that pretty quickly because they don't want that unruliness. And kids are kids. They're not inherently bad. It's just they're loud and unruly, and they're just young, and they make a lot of noise. So, and also, I don't know about how things have changed now, but when in 2010, let's say, no, 2006, kids were just having a little sausage and chips. So for £1.50, £2, they were throwing chips around everywhere because I hardly eat anything. And actually, so nowadays, obviously, the spend's higher. But do you really want to annoy people that are going to come back 2-3 times a week, spend good money for people that are just spending a couple of quid? Is what I'm trying to say.
No, well, that's it.
Yeah, it's a fair point. No, interesting though. So I think what's interesting and what I want to sort of pass out in this podcast is, well, trade is always changing, but how is it changing? And I think that's really important. One thing I'm hearing a lot of is that customers just aren't spending the money. What are you two seeing?
Yeah, fish sales are down for me. I mean, in Leicester, we're not a fish area as such anyway. So, we've always been reliant on the sausage sales and things like that. But now, we're selling so many sausages and fish cakes and pies. Yeah, but it's good. It's quick service. It's not a lot of effort to put a fish cake and chips together. But the actual big purchases, if people are looking at a large fish for £11 now and going, maybe I'll just have a sausage and chips for a £5. It certainly had an effect. Fish sales for me are definitely down.
Jamie?
Yeah, no. Same picture for me. It's fish is definitely down. It's still my biggest seller, but again, we kind of try to push people away from fish just when the prices skyrocketed and still haven't quite come down. But we did make an effort to try and promote some other things, change our menu slightly to push them away from that. But they do definitely seem to be changing their spending habits, that's for sure.
So one thing I'm always trying to figure out is, and I think all areas are different, like Charlie just touched on that a bit before. And one thing I noticed about some shops is that they'll say, for example, oh, nobody's buying fish, or fish is too expensive for people. And then, for example, if you're like in London area, Kent area, maybe not so much Kent, Essex, they do have different fish on the menu. They'll have rock, they'll have skate, and these are usually more expensive than cod, nearly always. And yet they sell well. And it always baffles me, because I always think, well, if cod is prohibitive for customers, why do those fish sell well? I've always wondered, and I know I've seen a lot of people go on and put cheaper fish on the menu. Have you two tried cheaper fish, and how's that work for you?
Yeah, well, I have. I did a half-price fish and chip deal. Did it twice a week. I did it a Monday and a Friday. So instead of fish and chips being £11, it was £5.50, but it was tilapia, and it was an unbelievable deal. We were selling, I don't know, I was doing between the two shops maybe 1,200-1,500 of those a week, and I ran it for 4 months. And we were queuing. Obviously, fish and chips £5.50 is unheard of. Now it was a bit of a double-edged sword. One, it was good and it was profitable, but did it damage my reputation? We haven't lost any trade, so I don't think it did. But did we get the odd complaint? It was never, that's not cod or haddock. It just tasted a little bit different. Is there something different? And then if you did explain to someone that it wasn't cod or haddock, they never bought it again. So whilst my sales were really good during that offer, it may have put a few people off. But I think overall, it was more positive than negative. So I think it was a good move in the end, but it was a big gamble. But it did get us through those dramatic price increases on the fish because, every 3 months I managed to put 50p on my fish. So it got me through that gap. But I just think people do just want cod and haddock. As soon as you tell them it wasn't cod or haddock, that was it, done. They weren't buying it again.
That's really interesting, isn't it? It's like, so that there was sort of okay not knowing, because obviously if you had a few complaints but you're selling 1,200 a week, that's a very small percentage of complaints.
Yeah.
Yep. And obviously you listened to that and you were worried about that. But it's like, clearly let's say it wasn't 100 a week complaining. So let's say it was under 5 to 10 people. So it's not.
So to put it into perspective, I ran it for 5 months and I was doing 10 to 15 boxes. So that's 1,000 to 1,500 a week. Yeah. And I probably had in total over those 5 months, 10 to 15 complaints.
Yeah, that's such a minor percentage, though.
I'd probably have that if I was giving them cod or haddock.
Yeah, but it's the perception, isn't it? It's the perception. Yeah. And I guess one part of you thinks when you're selling something cheaper anyway, you could argue that maybe some wanted to complain but didn't complain but thought it was great value. So let's double the amount of complaints for argument's sake. But it is weird that this country, for the most part, consumers just love cod and haddock and then the few bits of fish that, whether it's hake or whatever it is that's sort of like regional, let's say. And they know that deal is absolutely stonking. It's like, if I went to a petrol station, I put diesel in and it was, 90p a litre. I'm probably thinking that's red diesel. Like, you're going to know to some degree there's something.
Yeah, customers knew, because the customers that thought about it, most people just come in and say fish and chips. The people that thought about it and asked if it was cod and haddock, we was honest with, but you wouldn't really see them again, or they'd pay the full price. But some weeks we would, if the price of haddock was right, we'd use haddock. We never use cod because it's too expensive. But sometimes there's a good deal on the fresh haddock. We used whiting one week. We used hake another week because it was a good offer. So we changed it. We did change the fish, and we'd just say it was market fish, whatever we could get at the right value that week, and people were okay with it. But I don't think it's a long-term plan for any shops doing it.
I'm just wondering, like, with my Rory Sutherland hat on, Charlie, I'm not going to spit at the screen or anything, but I'm just thinking like a marketer for a moment. If you did that offer and actually said tilapia and chips, let's say it didn't sell.
Well, if you put that,
yeah. Okay, so let's just assume then that's wild. But let's say you did tilapia and chips. Let's say it was £5.50, £6, whatever, £5.99. And you put it next to cod or haddock on the menu. Do you think you'd sell more haddock and cod because people think, well, actually, that's cheaper. I want the good stuff.
Well, I think there is an argument to that. My cod I don't do it in the large size anymore. I've got rid of large cod. So I do regular haddock, large haddock, and regular cod. And my regular cod is £9 and it's a 6 ounce piece. So it's not very big and it's bloody expensive. And we have found that people are still buying the cod because they want that premium fish. They think they're getting something special. So, yeah, I think they would. I think if you put something incredibly cheap next to it, and same way if you put something incredibly expensive on as well, they'd probably see the cod and haddock as better value. So if you put something cheaper, they're going to see it as premium. If you put something more expensive on the menu, they're going to see it as better value.
I'm convinced in that as well. Like, I think I said it on a pod squad a while ago that if you had something on the menu like halibut, even if you had a couple of pieces in the freezer, just something above cod and haddock that makes that all of a sudden look really good value. So I don't know, I'm just saying, for argument's sake, if you've got halibut or turbot and it's £14 on its own, and then you've got that right above cod, which is, I don't know, again, I'm just guessing numbers here, £9, all of a sudden it makes that £9 look better value, doesn't it? That's my thought. Yeah. So Jamie, what about you? Have you done any different species? I know you're in Scotland, so you've got to. Look, and I don't mean that as a joke, but obviously it's haddock and haddock, isn't it? Like where you.
It is, yeah. Like we've tried species across the last few years. Even cod we had in the menu because we got a great deal on it. You were able to sell it for cheaper, and this is going back a good couple of years. But people just didn't want it because it wasn't haddock. You're in there, and a lot of people will ask for haddock and chips or haddock supper. That's how they'll ask for it. It's never just fish and chips. So it is just so ingrained in people that it's haddock through and through. Being where we are, the northeast of Scotland, the huge fishing industry on our doorstep, it's just what people have grown up with and what they just expect. So it is very difficult to pull them away from that.
Yeah, I met someone recently. It was a lorry driver. This is where I get most of my information now, actually, by the way. It's lorry drivers that come into the office. And actually, it's a good picture of our industry because they're they're people that are like at our level, whether it's tradesmen, lorry drivers, they're people that probably will appreciate fish and chips more than most without trying to be classist. And he was from your neck of the woods, just a bit further up, and I picked up on the accent pretty quickly, not Leicester, Charlie. And and I sort of said, we were chatting, and I said, do you like cod? And he says, no, it's full of worms. I'm not going to do the accent because I don't want everybody to boo me. And he said, no, it's full of worms. And I was like, but surely all fish is full of worms. Like, it's fish. Like, it's like saying cows are full of grass. But I just thought, I'm not going to argue. But, it's the perception that gets into people. For example, I don't know if you've seen it, Jamie, but Charlie has. Like, there's photos of a fish and chip shop in Wakefield called Georgia Green, and the product's really dark. And the people that love it absolutely love it, and the people that don't love it think, "Oh my god, what a horrendous looking product." And I think people like what they like, regardless. But it leads me to the question. So you did haddock, and you always do haddock. Sorry, it's fresh haddock, of course, from Peterhead.
Yep.
We've spoke about this privately, but let's discuss it a little bit on a podcast. What would happen if you did frozen at sea? Do you think frozen at sea?
Again, like you just said, the perception, frozen is going to be crap quality, it's going to be rubbish, and it's hard to go away and get something that can mirror even how it looks. It's obviously that little bit fatter, it's a thicker fillet, and we did have to use it at Christmas time just past. We get on well with it, but people do, you do get probably more comments than what Charlie did in his 5 weeks doing the fish and chips. There's more people going to pick up on it than that.
How do they pick up on it? In what sense? And I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, but I'm trying to think, how do they find out originally? Do they sniff it out? Is it the look of it? Have the staff said something?
It's generally the look of it.
Okay.
And people, obviously, over Christmas time, they're not stupid, and they know that the fishing boats aren't going out.
Okay.
They know that we aren't getting fresh fish, so it's like, right, how are you getting it? And yeah, they do. Because we weren't able to get as probably tightly graded as we would have hoped, just with the shortages that there is, and obviously not usually buying frozen at sea, you're not the priority. So we kind of just had to get what we could, cut it down, and it does look different. If you got that thicker loin part, it's looking a lot different.
I guess the thing is as well is that if you're not used to cutting fish, it is hard to make them all symmetrical.
Yeah.
My customers can't really tell because I'm so used to cutting fish that I can make a frozen at sea piece look like a fresh piece. But I guess if you have spent most of your time, Jamie, not cutting fish, then it's going to be a struggle.
That's exactly it.
So, right, here's a question, a slightly deeper question. And I think if Jim Coey listens to this podcast, he'll tell me off. If it was frozen at sea, but from a Scottish vessel, do you think customers would appreciate it more?
Probably. If we were to say that it was caught in Scottish waters and frozen at sea, it probably would change it slightly.
Yeah, but haddock that you're using isn't caught in Scottish waters, is it?
Sorry
to upset anybody listening.
I know.
Sorry.
That's it.
Look at you now. He's like
that's a lot of customers just like, what?
Sorry to upset anybody.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of our fish right now will be coming from the Faroes, will be coming from Shetland, will be coming from further afield, not directly off the coast of Aberdeen like some people might think.
Yeah, I think most people think you're walking the sea and it's there, just waiting.
Well, yeah. We just go and stand at the beach with our fishing rods, but no, it is a little bit further afield. But yeah, because it's landed at Peterhead,
that makes it Scottish. Yeah,
precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Even if they caught it in Icelandic waters, and they brought it back because it landed in. Yeah, no, I get that.
But what I would say is though, that I buy quite a lot of fresh haddock, and you can always tell the Scottish stuff. I was buying quite a lot of Scotch haddock for a while. It's dried up a bit over Easter, and since
that's why the prices keep going up. Cheers, Charlie.
It's safe for all the Scottish shops. You can tell the difference between the Icelandic stuff, the Norwegian stuff, and the Scottish stuff is completely different. It is a lot better. The Scottish stuff is.
What whiter, fresher?
Yeah, it's got like a pinky hue to it, and it's just not as torn. If you have it skinned, it just seems to be a bit firmer flesh on it as well. I don't know if it is because it's just fresher. I guess if it's coming from the top end of Iceland, it's going to be an extra few days on a boat. And I don't know if they process it differently at Grimsby compared to Peterhead, but it always seems to be a lot less torn if it comes from Scotland. It seems to have more flavour as well, so it must be fresher.
Yeah, you probably could be right. And I didn't want to upset anybody listening to this, by the way. Anybody Scottish, of course. No, you probably could be right. And I know you've sent me photos before. And I think from a photo point of view, when you've sent me, it does look like it's more like a crisper white. And I get what you're on about the pink. It's almost like a pearlescent. I get what you mean. So, no, it's interesting. So Jamie, based on that, you couldn't see yourself ever trying sort of like tilapia, pollock or anything like this?
No, we've tried some things, and I know some local shops to us have used things like hake, saith, but it's just it'll either sit in the freezer or end up in the bin, because the perception is haddock is a superior product, and people tend to be happy enough paying what they need to pay for it to get it. And yeah, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for anyone to change that and pull that back.
Yeah. And how have prices been looking, Jamie?
Scary. They have been bad recently. Just before Christmas, they rose to about £16-17 a kilo. Dropped a little bit. About a month ago, we were up to £22 a kilo. So for a stone box, 6.35 kilos, it was £140. So it was a big increase to what we were used to. Probably last year, the average price was around £13-14 a kilo. So it was a huge, huge increase. We're starting to see them come down a little bit now. I think today I'm about £16 a kilo. And just as we start to get into the summer a little bit, it will get lower again. And we're currently in spawning season, so there isn't as much fish, and the fish that there is coming in is a lot thinner, so we're not getting the same weight. I spoke to my fish supplier just yesterday, and he said that there was 500 boxes of medium haddock came in yesterday, but only about 100 of that, which was really bought up and suitable for fish and chip shops. So the supply is a bit of an issue, and that's obviously why Charlie's been cut off from his Scottish supply, as there is just a little bit of a shortage at the moment, which has pushed up prices.
And have you managed to ride that wave and increase your prices, or have you just sort of sat there and swallowed it for a bit?
We started to swallow it probably at Christmas time, as we knew we didn't have a lot of time to go, and hoped that as we went into that new year they would come down again, but didn't quite have that. So we did put up our prices. We're kind of left in a position of, yeah, the margin sink or make sure you take a decent cut from it. And yeah, we had to put up our prices.
Given the fact that it's hyper-local and your customers want local haddock, that tells me that they understand a little bit about the provenance and where it's coming from. Do they get it when you tell them that the prices have moved like crazily? And what's their mentality like? Do they support it? Because obviously, not obviously, but you'd think that because they appreciate the provenance, they would want Scottish fishermen to get paid right. So I'm just trying to figure out how consumers feel about it.
I think that because it's not benefiting them, they don't really care, to be honest.
Like a normal customer then.
Yeah. Yeah. When we put up our prices, did we get a huge number of complaints about the price? No. There was a few that would moan and say, oh, well, I'm going to go elsewhere, and they'd name other shops. And I'm like, well, good luck, because I know that they're charging more than me. But yeah, it's something that some people just, no, I'm not paying that. But that's a very, very small portion of it. We're a community shop, which a lot of returning customers week in, week out. So they are still coming back and still buying fish. But I don't think they're really going to care too much about whether or not the fisherman's getting a fair price and care about that aspect of it.
I guess that's a different issue for another day. But at the moment, they want their fish supper and they don't want you making loads of money.
That's it. They're patriotic when they want to be, but when it comes to money in their pocket, then no.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. Talking about when customers say, oh, I'll go to another shop. I was at a customer's the other day, really nice guy, Brent Watson, has been on the podcast. And he told me years ago when I still ran my dad's shop, he says, when customers come in and say, oh, I'll go to the shop down the road, or I went down the other shop down the road, whatever, however way they phrase it, trying to be nice, because it's really always a dig. It's just framed in different words. He said, He just turns around and goes, oh, I've never been. I heard they're nice, and that's it. And he says, he goes, because then it sort of just shuts them up politely and you just move on. He goes, because one thing they could also be doing is looking for gossip. And the last thing you need is gossip going between shops. So, yeah, it is interesting. On another note, though, so you're predominantly haddock, and Jamie and Charlie, you're predominantly haddock, aren't you, as well? So would you ever consider getting rid of cod and haddock off the menu and just only having... And the reason why I ask, because I've seen some shops lately actually ditch their main species. And I've always thought, I think Jeff Whitehead did it a while ago, and cod came back. And I just wonder, is that really, really risky, taking off the main species? Surely you're better off just saying, here's the price. If you don't want to pay for it, then you don't have to buy it. Yeah, Jamie, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, well, like I said, although fish sales are down, it's still my biggest seller. So if I was to take that off the menu, I would see a big drop in sales. People who want fish and chips are going to pay for it, especially where we are, where haddock is the best thing, the best fish. Everyone wants haddock. They're going to pay for it because they don't want to compromise and go for anything else when that's what is so ingrained in them. So for me, it would never be a question of taking haddock off our menu, that's for sure.
Yeah. Charlie?
Well, I have a little bit more control than that because people in Leicester will eat both species quite happily. What I would say is I've took large cod off the menu. Large cod was a good seller for me. Up until this year, I was 80% cod and 20% haddock. But this year, I took large cod off the menu, put the price of cod, my regular cod up, and made haddock significantly cheaper and only offered large fish as haddock. And that's improved my margins, but not necessarily cash margin. But then what I would say is that people who are buying large fish are sharing it. The majority are. A lot of it's old couples will come in and buy large fish and one chip. So, you can sort of presume that they're going to share. I think if you're in an area like the Midlands, you can sort of switch things to how you want. If I put cod and haddock at the same price, I'd probably sell 60-40 cod. So it's different for me because I can sort of pick and choose. But I think if you up north, and especially Scotland, you've got to just stick with what you've got. But if you are selling a huge chunk of one fish and not the other, and you don't know the area, I managed to change it because I know Leicester well, and I know that there's a lot of shops just doing haddock in Leicester with a little bit of cod. So I'm in a fortunate position; I could change that. But if you're in London, you've got to sell cod. If you're in Leeds, you've got to sell haddock. You can't dictate what people want. You've got to sell what they want to buy. You can tweak it and make it more expensive and things, but I think if you're a cod shop, taking cod off the menu is nuts. Tweak the sizes, tweak the prices, but just take your best seller off the menu completely. I don't get it.
Yeah. No, it baffled me somewhat. I won't lie, looking at that. And then quickly, it wasn't long before, if we're looking at Jeff Whitehead in his instance, I didn't really talk to him a lot about it, but it wasn't long before cod came back to the menu. And I do wonder, if you're willing to take it off, then surely you're better off just putting the price up. Surely, that's what I always think of it as. So it's interesting. I get the pressure, but again, are we solving the wrong problem? Is it the solution for the wrong problem? And I think, I always say sometimes we can overthink problems, and sometimes you just need to go back to first principles and figure out what is the problem. How can I fix that individual problem? It's like me saying, wheat's gone up in price. All right, I'm going to stop doing wheat flour and just do spelt. And you think, well, was that solving the problem? No, you just needed a price increase. You just have to explain the story, what's going on. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in the price. And I think, customers, for the most part, it's the messaging. I don't know, I told Charlie, I must have told you, but if it wasn't, it was someone else. And a chap come the other day to collect old pallets from the warehouse. Nice guy. And he comes in. First time I've met him properly, to be honest. Come in, we were chatting. And he said, he goes, what do you do? He doesn't know what I do. He has no idea. And I supply fish and chip shops. And the first thing that came out his mouth, and I smiled, to be honest, first thing that came out his mouth is, they're expensive now, aren't they? And I started laughing. I was like, well, are they? And he goes, well, yeah, they are. And I was like, well, tell me how much they are. He couldn't tell me. He couldn't even think what the price was. Probably hadn't had it in ages. And I was like, that says KFC's more expensive now. Oh, yeah, it is. Well, McDonald's is more expensive now. And he started laughing. He goes, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it like that. And I laughed and I said, it wasn't long ago that a Greggs sausage roll was 99p and now it's like whatever, 140 or something, 150. And he was like, yeah, he goes, why do we always think fish and chips is expensive then? And I was like, I don't know. I said it because it's just become a thing. And he was like, yeah, it makes complete sense.
The same with anything, though. I'll go to a pub, buy a round, and I'll go, bloody hell, that was expensive. Now, some pubs it is expensive. Other pubs it's not as expensive. I'm still going to say it's expensive.
Yeah.
Because for so many years you were used to a pint being £4. Now it's £6-7. So in your head you're going, whoa. But really, compared to minimum wage, I was on. Back when I was on, say, £8-9 an hour, first starting out, and I was paying £4, I could get 2 pints. Now, my staff can buy 2.5, 3 pints for an hour of minimum wage. Same with fish and chips. And we get it all the time in the petrol station, people moaning about the fuel. And I'm like, well, it's, okay, diesel's £1.90, £2 now. It was that 3 years ago. So it came down dramatically, and now it's up dramatically. So is it any more expensive? It's not. It's no more expensive than it was 3 years ago. But it's just certain things people are always going to moan about. The price of a pint, the price of cigarettes, the price of fuel, the price of fish and chips. It's just something. They're still coming in, though. We've all still got customers. Maybe not as many as you did 30, 40 years ago, but, there's a lot more open now.
Jamie, what are your thoughts? Obviously, where you are, I guess people care about the price of fish and chips. What else? The price of Iron Brew. Wow.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, that's it. If you go to the co-op, it's reduced. It's £1 a bottle, so you're okay.
You buy a pallet of it.
Yeah, no, it is. But we have to put up our prices, and we understand why we're doing it. The cost of everything's going up, and it's just the same across the board. Everywhere you go, I totally agree with what Charlie says. No matter what happens, everyone's going to moan about the price, and they are going to fluctuate, and there's not a lot we can do about it. Everyone's getting paid a lot more now. So in theory, they should be able to afford it. But yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is, I was chatting to a customer the other day, and it was only anecdotal. He was saying that 5 years ago, one of his staff members, it's a couple, and they both work for him. They were on a lot less money, but they could afford their rent. They could afford everything. Like, they had no problem. They had meals out. So they were on less money. But now they're on more money, and they can't afford their rent, and they can't afford to eat out. And I wondered, like, obviously I don't know anything about their spending habits. It's completely anecdotal. But I think the cost of living has gone up quite considerably. And I'm not 100% sure whether the full wage increases cover it all, to be honest. I really don't know. Especially when you see diesel at 190 a litre and you see, 160 for petrol. I think, I don't know. Are people feeling the squeeze everywhere? And also, modern society means that everybody wants everything now. I know people say, oh, well, my grandparents. Well, yeah, things were different. I remember a friend of mine saying that when his parents moved into their house, I guess in the 50s, they were happy to sit on the floor and they didn't have a bed for a year. And no one does that now. You never hear of anything like that now. So,
yeah, everyone's houses look nice. I'm generalising here.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah.
People know it, but
you just thought of someone that lives in a shithole. That's why you just backtrack.
If people want the houses to look nicer, they'll have Netflix, they'll have everything. Do you know what I mean? They'll have Sky Sports, they'll have the cinema. That people are spending a lot more time at home, so being at home has become more expensive. But therefore, your income is less to go out, and people aren't in the pubs as much. They're perhaps not eating out as much. They're not having takeaways as much because their home has become more of a sanctuary.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, my mate Kev, who works for a food company, manufacturing food for like supermarkets, he said that they are seeing, and I think it's still the case. I've not met up for him for a while, but we spoke not long ago. And I think it's still the case that consumers are spending more at the supermarket. They're trading up. So, for example, if they were going to get a steak, they'd buy the better steak. If they were going to get chicken, they'd buy the better chicken, or the meal. They're really trading upwards. They're getting the deals that M&S do. They're buying the better pies. So I think consumers, shall I say, if they are eating at home, think, let's make it good. And I think supermarkets are real competition for restaurants and takeaways, especially if you actually don't mind staying in. The food can actually be really good quality. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I wanted to touch base on with you because a lot of people say, oh, fish and chips has it hard. But Jamie and I have been sort of doing Jamie separately been doing something in another sector, which is pizza. And although we're doing the same thing in a separate place at a separate time, I'm supplying pizza businesses and Jamie started a pizza business. But everyone always says fish and chips has it hard. And one thing I've seen supplying pizza businesses is that they have got 10 times more competition.
But it's crazy. Rather than ordering pizza from a takeaway, I mean, I'd always get it from a supermarket pretty much. Yeah. You can get some really nice ones.
Yeah.
Or a lot of pubs now have pizza sheds. So on a nice summer's evening, I'll go down to a beer garden and have a pizza there. Ordering actually from Domino's or a pizza place, a local pizza place, isn't something that I'd actually do often, and I eat my fair share of pizza.
I like how he gave it some authority. Yeah. But no, I think
don't wait to think I'm a once a year pizza man. I'm a twice a month.
Yeah, I'm probably like your once a year pizza man, obviously. But because I'm obsessed by it. I love it. I've been doing a lot of research about it. And it makes me really hungry looking at really good pizza, whether it's Chicago pizza, New York pizza, Neapolitan pizza. And my kids absolutely like Domino's. Every now and then they love a Domino's because they're kids. What kid doesn't like Domino's? But the crazy thing is, I was at M&S about 2 months ago, and my dad fancied a pizza, and the pizza quality was epic. And it was one of their better ones. And already it's M&S anyway, so a better one. And you think the quality was so good. So what I was getting at more so is that people in our industry always say, no one gets competition like fish and chips. I don't think that's true. I think there is competition in every sector. And I think the difference is, do you want it from a takeaway or a restaurant, or do you want it from a supermarket? Think of Indian food and Chinese food. You go to any good supermarket and they've got all of those little boxes ready to go, so you can pick and choose. And they actually travel really well, the Asian foods. So I just wanted to sort of point that it isn't just the fish and chip industry that gets a hard time, because not every man and his dog is going to set up a fryer tomorrow. When you're buying fish and chips from a supermarket, it's worse. I don't care what anybody says. Even M&S fish and chips, it's going to be worse than a good quality fish and chip shop fried product, because invariably they're half fried and popped in the oven, and it's never as good. Whereas, a pizza though, or Indian food or Chinese food, sometimes for me, who I'm very finicky where I eat out, I bet you I would prefer Indian food from a supermarket for the most part, because I know that it's probably made in a cleaner environment. Again, I'm out obviously to insult everyone here today. So, but and I said to someone the other day, we were talking about fish and chips, and he says, I love Chinese food more. And I said, there's a reason why the Chinese takeaway door's always closed. And it's true, the way they bring out the order, they don't ever want you to see in the back, ever. Whereas that is not a problem with fish and chip shops ever. Fish and chip shops, you can see everything there in front of you. And I think that's one massive advantage that fish and chip has. But I think, although my little tangent there was just to say that every business now has competition. Every food business, whether it's Thai, Chinese, Indian, there is no such thing as no competition. Jamie, how have you found going into a slightly different business? Tell us a little bit about it whilst you're there. It's Seize a Slice.
Caesar slice, yeah.
What if you could just translate that for us as well?
Caesar slice is like what you'd say to give me a slice. It's a Scottish kind of play on that. Obviously, being pizza slice, but yeah, no, it was me and my friend Murray Watson from the Karen. We have joined up to bring Neapolitan style pizza in a mobile van. It was a little bit of an impulse buy. When me and Murray kind of have an idea, we just go with it. Yeah, it's actually the first time that both of us have stood there and said, you know what, we're actually a little bit uncomfortable with working with food. We both worked with fish and chips for so long that it becomes kind of second nature to you. I'm not trying to say it's easy, but it's second nature to you. So it was nice to kind of try something that a little bit different. Margins are a hell of a lot better as well, so that always puts a smile on your face. But yeah, just tried something a little bit different.
I had a customer message me yesterday and I mentioned your business. I sent him the Instagram link, and he's not far from Charlie, actually. Well, it was Leicestershire. And I said to him that although the margins would be higher, and tell me if I'm wrong here, I fully expect that the volumes would be lower than fish and chips.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine the labour cost would be really high as well because they don't put themselves together.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Fish and chips, one server can churn out quite a lot of fish and chips per hour.
Yeah.
But building a pizza, cutting it, boxing it.
Well, that's it. And it even goes back to making the dough. All that dough has to be made the day before. It does. The labour costs are high. Cheese, although we buy cheese in for the shop, we don't realise how expensive a good quality mozzarella cheese really is.
Yeah, because for the most part, most chip shops that are using cheese for the cheesy chips, or even if they've got a pizza shop within their fish and chip shop, the cheese is probably just like an analog cheese or a very, very mild product, isn't it?
Yeah.
£5 to £7 a kilo is all you're paying for your chip shop cheese.
How much are you paying for cheese for the Caesar slice?
Well, for the price of cheese for one pizza, it's about £2 per pizza. So you're paying £2. So
if you made one for me, that'd be £4. Like double cheese. So yes.
That's always a comment you get with Neapolitan style pizzas. It's
where's the cheese?
Where's the toppings? But yeah, no, it's been something that has been fun to build. It's been a little bit different being a mobile unit so that we can take it to places. We're not stuck in a one location. You're not relying on a single community to come around you. You can take it anywhere, as well as go and cater for private events, as well as birthdays, parties, work lunches, which has been great. And there's been quite a high demand for it. I think that companies and businesses are looking for something different to thank their staff and recognise hard work, which isn't going to break the bank and just gives them a little boost.
I know you mentioned it was sort of like a flippant not last minute, and it wasn't a long thought out, drawn out decision.
No.
But you must have either some confidence in the economy, or you're just quite entrepreneurial. Which one was it? Or you just thought, let's just do this thing. We're in business. This is what we do.
With me and Murray, we both said we wanted to do something. We didn't know what that quite was. We seen that there was a pizza van for sale. We went to go buy it. It was already sold. And we thought, well, we've kind of drawn up the whole plan now. Why don't we just go for it? So I think it was probably more the entrepreneurial route rather than hope and pray that the economy holds up for us. But no, it's been fun, exciting to build.
Why Neapolitan? Why didn't you go for New York? Why didn't you go for a Chicago pizza?
Yeah,
because Chicago pizza is a bit heavier. People might like the fact that they've got more to it. Yeah,
so we kind of looked at what's around us. In our local area, you can go away, you can get that big, thick takeaway pizza. You can get so many different...
It's what I call a bit like a kebab shop pizza.
Exactly. Yeah. One of them that's going to leave you a bit like after a Chinese, you're going to be drinking water for a week just to rehydrate. So we thought we'd do something different. It gives us that little unique selling point there. There's not a lot of it in the area, so even if we were going to different locations, it's that little bit exciting for people. And it was only afterwards we found out it's probably one of the hardest pizzas to master. So, yeah.
That's where a little bit more thought might have paid off.
It would have. It certainly would have.
When you were designing your menu, I'm not going to go on about this for much longer because I think it's another podcast for another day. But were you wary of cost pressures, or was it, this is what the pizza costs, here's my margin, add my VAT, done? Because in our industry, the fish and chip side, we always talk about price. People won't pay for this. And then I see like Neapolitan pizzas, 12 quid, 13 quid, 11 quid. And it isn't a huge pizza. It's not a 15 inch. It's not 14 inch. It's a single pizza.
Yeah.
So was price an issue, or was it just that's the price we're aiming at?
Yeah, you're fortunate that your dough price is relatively low. Your sauce is just tomatoes and salt, relatively low. For your margarita, all you're doing is throwing some parmesan, some mozzarella, some basil leaves. So that the big bulk of it is a cheese, which you try to limit, but it still costs you about £2. So yeah, we looked at prices. I know obviously now you're selling some of the Sonata flour as well. We're in a Sonata group chat with some other pizza businesses, and they do look at their prices quite a lot because a lot of them start off just a small single one-man band kind of thing, and then it starts to grow from there. They then have to be VAT registered, and it's like, right, and I need to add on X amount for VAT, which you could see them squirming at. Was like, people aren't going to pay it, but you're surprised at what people will pay for. Like our pizzas start off at £9. That's for a 12-inch pizza. go up to £13. And we just did a function at the weekend where the pub that we were at, they were taking £1 extra for themselves just for us being there. And people didn't say a thing about the price. Obviously a little bit different because you've got the bigger risk of waste. Because if you don't sell fish today, you're most likely going to be able to sell it tomorrow. With the pizza dough, if you don't sell it today, it's just going to have to be thrown out or used for something else.
At the risk of joking, I gave you this fantastic marketing idea just before Charlie came on the podcast. Yeah. And Charlie, I said, if it doesn't use the dough today, you can market it as 48-hour age tomorrow. Like, I don't see the issue. And if you're at a pub the next day, I don't think anybody's going to quite notice.
No. You know. Well, that's it.
No, joking aside, like, it is an interesting business model because, like, it is weird that people mentally are willing to spend 13 quid on a pizza, 9 to 15 quid for a pizza, let's say 13. And it isn't a Domino's pizza because that's probably I don't know what Domino's is nowadays, but let's say that's 14 quid and that'll feed a few people.
Yeah.
Like, I might be way off with my figures. So if I'm wrong, don't bother telling me I'm wrong anyway. Like, but it's just like, it's a different product for a different market.
Yeah.
But clearly those people appreciate what they're buying. But I think sometimes does that mean we have the messaging wrong in the fish and chip industry? One thing I noticed about pizza, it's how much love went into it, how much effort went into it. And then when we start talking about fish and chips again, it goes back to being really technical. It's, I do this, I do that, my fish comes from here. And I do wonder, do we lose the love and story from the fish and chip side? Whereas Italian food and pizza really carries that through.
Yeah, I think the fish and chip industry loves to focus on the negatives and the rising costs and the struggles as opposed to what's really happening. It's taking this natural products and turning it into the nation's favourite dish. So I think that you don't have that in any other industry. You don't have the pizza industry saying, oh man, the cheese prices are crazy this week. You don't have the same publicity about the struggles and pressures as we like to put out about fish and chips. So yeah, I do think that, like you say, the messaging is probably wrong.
Yeah, I just think, for me, it's just, I might be wrong, but like, I just think like you've got to sell the sausage, not the squeak. We've got to really market the business rather than, what I see a lot of is, and look, and that's not to say that operationally, logistically, those issues aren't there.
Yeah.
It's not to say, I know a lot of shops that are struggling right now, so I don't want it to sound like, we're being naysayers, because if you're struggling, I get it completely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if consumers are struggling and they come into your business for a break, do they want to hear your problems? And I think the answer is probably no. Like,
yeah, I think as an industry, we're pretty awful at marketing in general. I think we're sort of where the burger industry was 15, 20 years ago. Burgers were just McDonald's or something you had on a van at football.
Or Wendy's.
Yeah.
No, Wimpy. Yeah. Sorry, not Wendy's. Sorry.
But now, I had a boom, and it's all artisan burgers. Same with coffee. Coffee was something you'd have at a greasy spoon or instant. And now there's so many coffee brands and real artisan coffee, and I think fish and chips sort of has to move in that direction if we want to get the margins we want to get. We can stay where we are if we want to, keep struggling and just scraping enough to get by. But if we want to charge the more money for our fish and chips, they've got to be better. They've got to be, coffee came in a big white mug. Instant coffee now, it comes in a nice cup with branding, and yes, people moan about the price, but they're still paying it. The same with the burgers. They put it in a nicer bun, put a nicer piece of cheese on it rather than plastic cheese, and all of a sudden they put £3 on the price. If we can make our fish and chips look more appealing, a nicer box, say, with branding. I know a lot of shops are already doing this, but there's a lot of shops that aren't as well. And if you want to charge the good prices, do the right things. It's got to come from someone who's dressed in a nice uniform and a nice shop with nice packaging. There's no point charging £12, £13 for fish and chips if it just looks like it's squashed in a piece of paper. If you want to do your fish and chips in paper and things, that's fine, but don't expect to get top prices for that. And your area might not get top prices. So if you're in the
it's
middle,
area dependent.
if you're in the middle of a council estate and they're not going to pay £14-15 fish and chips, there's no point, putting a wedge of lemon on it, doing a homemade tartar sauce with a big fancy box, wrap it in paper, get it cooked, get them in and out quickly, and make your profit that way. But knowing your area is one of the most important things.
I was watching a news story yesterday. I was in Bristol for the weekend, and I don't know if it was a local BBC news story or a national one. It felt like they put a lot of effort into it, so it could have been a national one. But they were showing footage from 1981 when I think there was about 8 McDonald's in London at the time. And I wasn't born then, guys, so don't look at me like that either. But they were talking about how it was the burger boom. And I remember then they went to a Wimpy, and back then Wimpy was big, guys. Like, when I was born, I think Wimpy was big until like the probably the top, maybe nearly 90s, and then McDonald's just flattened them. And but the MD of Wimpy then was saying it's going to be a tough market. It was nearly black and white. Like, he goes, it's going to be that's an exaggeration, but he goes, it's going to be a tough market. We're going to have to advertise really hard. It was so honest what he was saying. It was so honest. He goes, we're going to have to advertise hard. We're going to have to get the younger generation in. And they were interviewing some kids in McDonald's, and they said, what do you think about it? And they were like, this is the future. Like, they were sold on it then. Like, they were really sold on it. And I think, but burgers has been through a boom constantly. It's one boom into the next boom, into the next boom. Very rarely in my time, since 1981, I was born in 84, I don't think any of us have seen burgers actually go on a downturn. There's been different types of burgers come out, but never a full-on downturn. And I wonder why that is. Why is it that the burger is very resilient? Not everyone does marketing like McDonald's, so you can't put it all down to marketing.
But it's also only a 50-year-old industry. If you're putting it that way, I bet fish and chips boomed for the first 50 years.
Well, it's 1981, just so you know, that just to clarify something. Yeah, that's 40s, okay? No, go on, carry on.
45 years, but yeah, I bet fish and chips was fine for the first 45 years. Let's see how burgers do over the next 100 years. They'll have ups and downs. I'm sure they will.
It's a glorified sandwich, but I like a burger, so I'm not knocking it. But it is amazing, how you see it do. It's very versatile. It does well in lots of different settings. But again, I think it's popular due to its versatility. You know sort of what you're getting. If you're leaving Old Trafford or Leicester City, you're going to get a dirty burger from one of the vans. You know what it is. It sort of is what it is. You're going to go McDonald's, you know what it is. You're going to go Five Guys, bit posher. Honest Burger, bit posher again. So yeah, I think that again, it hits every wage budget, really, doesn't it? Because you can get a really posh one or you can get a normal one. And yet you see wealthy people eating at McDonald's and you see poorer people eating at Five Guys. So it's very interchangeable. So this is why I think we focus far too much in our industry on price. We've just spoken about how you can get a pizza for anywhere from £6 at an M&S and you cook it yourself, or 15 quid at something like 13 quid at Jamie's, and lots of people like Jamie. And Domino's and so on. It's a saturated market. So why is our industry the only one that really focuses on price? And I think maybe that's it says more about us, the traders, than it does the consumer. Yeah, just a thought. So yeah, it's just interesting to see where that all goes. Jamie, any thoughts before we close that one?
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that it's on us as opposed to the consumer. But yeah, it's hard to see where we can go to change that and change the whole perception of fish and chips.
Do you think, here's another thought process, another slight tangent, the fish and chip menus have gotten too big? And I sort of tell you why, because a friend of mine said a while ago, what is a fish and chip shop? Because some places are general food takeaways. Yes, they have. The only thing they have in common is they have a frying range. If you go in some parts of Scotland, let's say Glasgow, Edinburgh, they do pizzas, they do wings, they still do pies, and they do a lot of fried products, fried pizza, for argument's sake. And then if you go to where Charlie is, they'll be doing maybe some southern fried chicken. They'll do kebabs. Some again may do pizzas, and then you sort of go to Wales, and they've got other things, like they've got a lot of chicken curry on the menu, or they've got faggots and stuff like that. So at what point do you think have menus gotten too big? And now there's a lot of shops adding chicken to the menu. Is there a limit, number one? And are we going to see people reducing menus a bit? Charlie, what do you think?
Well, I think you will, and I think it'll all come down to labour cost in the end, because the bigger your menu, the more complicated it is, the more people you need to do it. Especially things like kebabs and burgers, you've got to put them together. A basic fish and chip menu is extremely efficient. You can put quite a few bits in the hot box and it will stand there for a while. You got to keep your fish moving, you got to keep your chips moving. But an actual fish and chip menu with sausages, fish cakes, a couple of different fritters and pies, you can have one member of staff, one fryer, and they can put quite a lot away an hour. You can probably do 30, 40 customers, maybe even 50 customers with just a fryer and a server per hour and be okay. And your wage bill percentage can sit at a really nice number. Now, you put kebabs in there, they're going to take 5 or 6 minutes per kebab, same with a burger. And also, it's where mistakes start to creep in. If you've got to get a kebab ready with 3 different sauces, 3 different salads, same with the burger, there's some chicken thing and a couple of different peas and a curry sauce, and it frazzles people's heads and they start to make mistakes. So you make more mistakes, your labour cost is higher, your cash is slower to turn over. So I just think it's a recipe for disaster, expanding your menu. And I know a lot of people have done it this last year. Me personally, I've got rid of kebabs, I've got rid of burgers. I'm just doing fish and chips, pies. We've got an extra chicken product on there, but we took off. We've took off loads. So I've had a bit of wiggle room to add it. But I wouldn't be adding anything without taking something off now. I do think people have got it all wrong by expanding the menu at the moment. And never mind that, your freezers stay full for so long. If it's taking you 3-4 weeks to move that box of Savaloids or cheese and onion fries or spring rolls, well, there's 50 quid of profits out there that could be something else.
You're not realising gains fast enough, are you?
I took burgers off the menu. People started buying more sausages. We took kebabs off the menu. People started buying more fish and more chicken products. Now, I committed to the chicken products. I thought, people want these chicken strips and they want these loaded chicken chips that we do, which are a bit fiddly, but far less fiddly than the kebab and no wastage on them. And, my wage bill is so much lower. My cash turns over so much faster. And it just seems like a bit of a no-brainer. When things are difficult, you want your cash fast. And you don't want many staff, especially with the new labour laws and things. For me, it's a no-brainer to keep things simpler than they've ever been.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe there's another advantage? Well, you're realising your gains faster because you're turning over product faster. Probably less energy costs if you're storing less frozen product, or at least you've got more space and more money to use on fish, which if you can get a deal, you want to swallow some of that up. But do you think can customers see you more of an artisan when you start stripping away certain things and just becoming a specialist?
Yeah, well, you certainly do a better job. So naturally, they will think that, if fish is all you've got on the menu, then they'd like to think that you know what you're doing with your fish. It's different in Leicester. Everyone does a bit of everything, but I know some places up north, especially sort of Leeds, Bradford, that sort of way, that if they sold kebabs, they'd actually sell. People would avoid them for fish and chips.
Well, Brent's told me that before when a customer's gone in the shop and one said, "Oh, you should do kebabs," and nine people in the queue would say, "You do that, I'm never coming in." Yeah. So they want fish and chips.
I've had comments and bad reviews where it says, "Stopped kebabs, stop burgers, basic menu now, won't go again." I'm like, well, okay, but you got to take that on the chin. You just got to sort of accept that that's what's going to happen. But my fish sales have been okay, and I'm selling more profitable things. So yeah, you got to choose your poison, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Jamie, what's your thoughts on that, mate? Because your menu isn't massive, is it?
No, but generally the Scottish menu is that a little bit bigger than your average English fish and chip shop. So, we do have things like you've got your fish, your chicken, your sausages, puddings, pies, burgers. So it is a bigger menu. Would I like to strip it back? Yes. Have we stripped it back? We've taken a few things off the menu, but it's just not wanting to sacrifice taking away something and knowing that people won't come back because that's all they kind of come in for. We would never think about adding anything extra to the menu unless it was taking 2 things off to put 1 thing on, because just like Charlie was saying, the more you do, the more you add on, the extra pair of hands you need, and the more expensive in the long run it is for you.
How often would you both review SKUs, like, and just say, well, like do a till report and say what's moving, not what's not? I don't. I'm speaking very old fashioned, but an EPOS report. How often would you look at those SKUs and say, all right, what's not moving, I'm getting rid of?
Well, mine's quite straightforward because I get it through my phone on the internet. So I'm looking at it all the time. I don't have a set time where I'm sat down, but if I think, something's not really moved recently, I can see, and it will do weekly, quarterly, monthly, and I can do a report and it will show me. So it's only really if I'm thinking, to be honest, if I think it's a bit of a pain in the arse on the menu to make and it's slowing us down, that's when I think, or if I want to bring something in, then I'll think, well, I'm going to shift my lowest selling other item. And it's not something I sit down and do religiously, but it's more of a gut feeling. And if you spend a lot of time in your shop, then you get these gut feelings.
How about you, Jamie?
Yeah, no, exactly the same. I've got it all at the touch of a button. Like Charlie, I'm in my shop quite a lot too, so you kind of see what's going, what's not, what's been sat in the freezer for a couple of weeks, and that's why things like a chip steak that would sell maybe a box a month, it's like, well, there's no point in having it sat there if I'm selling, less than one a day kind of thing. So yeah, no, it is. You're constantly reviewing and looking at things and seeing what is working and what's not.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important. It's something that, I talk about this with the pod squatters all the time. And I'm saying, like, I think a couple of them are more pro adding things to the menu, especially Mark Petru. He's quite inventive. He likes thinking about new things. Whereas I'm always a bit more like, I'd rather sell more of what I've got. And I think like that's, you don't see McDonald's doing things that aren't really burgers or everything's framed around the burger. Yeah, there's some few sides like nuggets or whatever. But even looking at those sort of companies, they are now using a lot more of what's on site. For example, the chicken Big Mac, they frame it as this really big thing, like it was the secret menu. But it's just a McSandwich fillet that goes inside of a Big Mac. So you've just swapped it out, but it feels like to the customer that it's a really big deal. And I went for breakfast yesterday in Bristol at a place called Loungers Group, and there's quite a few. They're about 300 all over. I'm not sure if they've made it to your part of the woods. There might be some in Aberdeen actually, but I'm not sure if there's one in Stonehaven. But it's a very large menu, but they mix a lot of the things around. So all the ingredients on the menu sort of support another product. And I remember chatting to one of the chefs, development chefs there, and he says, if we bring in an ingredient, we need to make sure that we can use it in 3 or 4 different items. And I think that's something we probably miss to some degree because we're not making meals like we're not building meals in our industry like, it's very much like sausage and chips, fish and chips, or something like that. Maybe now with all these loaded fries, we're seeing a bit more innovation. But I think for the most part, we're not really developing anything new. So it's hard to then use 4 or 5 things across different things. So it's interesting because I think that I'm a big fan of having faster throughput of customer and money, turning that money over a lot faster. And then by doing that, it does mean, like Charlie said, incidentally, it just means that hopefully what you do, because you have more time, means that the product is better because you're not running off to go cut a kebab or to go get a pie. Well, pies are in the hot box anyway, I'm just as an example. So yeah, I think you've got to be really careful sometimes, like what you have on the menu. And if you've got to walk away from the frying range to go get something, or send somebody.
I think almost a good rule of thumb that I always use is if you can't have it ready at peak time on a Friday night, what's it doing there? My whole menu is ready to go on a Friday night between, 5 and 8. I have everything ready, even to the point of onion rings, mozzarella sticks, chicken nuggets, because they move. And if it's not doing that on a Friday night, why have you got it on your menu at all? Because if you can't, because it's going to be a pain in the arse if you can't have it ready on a Friday night and then all of a sudden you've got a pan full of fish and you're reaching for some, I don't know, mac and cheese bites or whatever it is, jalapeno poppers or, whatever these things are, it's going to slow you down. And that's where the problems come.
Yeah, I'd go as far as say if you can't do it on a Monday, you've got a problem too, though, Charlie, because I've been to shops on like a Monday, Tuesday, and then one of these orders come in and everything just like, you could see the guy behind the range is just like, oh my God, 1 minute, I've got to go do this, I've got to do that. And it's like, Brenda, get me this, Johnny, get me that. And it's just become chaos. And you think that tells you that they're struggling to do it. And as good as it looks on the menu, I think, you know what, you probably could have sold 10 fish and chips in that time. Like, And I think that's something that I've learned from a few people, that actually just stick to what you're good at to some degree, because you can take your eye off the ball. Charlie, you mentioned, I just wanted to touch back on it. You touched on it a little bit, and I made a note and I wanted to come back to it. You mentioned that you actively switched customers away from cod to haddock. Now, at the time, we were talking about getting rid of a major species, and we didn't quite delve into the fact that you switched people as opposed to stopping something. Was that troublesome at all? Or was it just, well, it's skinless, boneless, I'm all right with that?
I sort of had to sell the story of haddock a little bit more. So what we did on the menu was we put, at the time we were buying Scottish haddock, so we put fresh Scottish haddock delivered daily, and underneath it we put cod with no information at all. And automatically people are starting to move to haddock. Then on all our online things, we took off all the fancy descriptions off of cod and made sure that our haddock ones were looking really good. Also, the price difference made probably the biggest difference. Menu positioning, putting haddock above cod, sort of almost not hiding cod on the menu, but certainly making it less obvious than it was. Making all meal deals with haddock. Any offers that I did were only with haddock. So cod, at lunchtime you could get haddock and chips for £9, but cod would be the normal everyday price of £12.50. There's no deals on cod. Changing the sizes, so getting rid of the large cod, automatically meant that we'd sell more large haddock. That was basically it, really. And then every time someone said fish and chips, getting the staff to just do haddock rather than asking. That was an absolute major thing. Just training the staff, people come in fish and chips, just automatically put down haddock and chips. And if they question you, then you can go, oh, you can have cod, but it's £1.50 more. 99% of people then go, oh, no, haddock's fine. So that's how I did it. But again, like I said earlier, Leicester's in quite a privileged position where they will eat, both species happily. Also, we had to sell it skin off, because the haddock in Leicester has traditionally always been skin on, and most shops in Leicester are still skin on. But that's what puts a lot of people off. So ran a poll on Facebook saying, do you prefer skin on, skin off? And it was like 90% wanted skin off. So then all the haddock we put, in brackets on the menu, fresh Scottish haddock, brackets, skin off, or skinless, or whatever I put. So yeah, that's how we shifted people. It's made a big difference to the bottom line.
I think one of my favourite fish is haddock with skin on. I prefer it with skin on. I can see why I don't like cod with skin on, because cod can be a bit thicker. It's not as nice. But yeah, haddock, I like it with skin on. But I can see that's probably why people don't like haddock, because they think, I'll go for cod because I know there's no skin.
Yeah, I think people who really, really like fish prefer skin on. But vast majority of people choose cod because it's skinless.
So elaborate on the bottom line. How did it help?
Well, for starters, haddock is significantly cheaper than cod at the moment. Also, what we do now is if we've got fish ready, I'm in an area where I will have fish in the hot box. We've always got haddock ready. Cod's cooked to order. So that keeps the product moving more and, makes us more efficient. And also I use fresh haddock. So there's no defrosting, there's no packaging, there's no more processes with it. Comes, we box it up, we sell it. It's very, very, very simple. So all of those things do translate into the bottom line.
It's amazing that you're in Leicester and you're possibly getting fresh haddock skin off cheaper than Jamie, who could probably... No, that's not to rub it in. No, sorry. I just wanted to clarify to the listener, because Jamie was saying earlier that he was paying nearly £16 to £20 a kilo, and you're now telling us it's cheaper than cod. And it is how decentralized this industry is. Because Jamie's listening to this and thinking, oh, okay. Well, you're saying it's cheaper than cod.
Well, Scottish fish won't necessarily be. No. That was like a really short time frame that it was cheaper, I think. And to be fair, when I spoke to Jamie, I was still paying slightly more than Jamie for the Scottish fish, which, makes perfect sense. Yeah. But fish out of Grimsby is certainly a lot cheaper than Scottish fish.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
And fresh at the moment has been cheaper than frozen at sea. Apart from the last 3 weeks, there's been a little bit of a blip through Easter and spawning season. But on the whole, for the last sort of 12 months, I'd say fresh has been as cheap, if not cheaper, than frozen at sea.
Yeah, you are saying Grimsby wrong, though, as a Leicester person. You know you're saying it wrong. You're doing it in your posh voice because you're on a podcast. It's Grimsby. Yeah. So, moving on, delivery apps? Like you guys, I take it, I know Charlie does Just Eat. Charlie, what else do you do?
All of them, Uber and Deliveroo. Just Eat Uber.
Oh, all of them. Okay. And Jamie?
No, we just have our own platform.
Okay. So own platform.
Yeah.
So just like a pre-order type thing, people
Yeah,
or
ICR. So
okay, same thing.
our own drivers, and we don't get charged for any orders. Where we are, there's not a huge presence of Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber Eats. You go 15, 20 miles into Aberdeen, and yes, it's a huge thing. But where we are, we don't have drivers in Stonehaven where we're situated, and there's not the same presence. I don't think there's probably 2 or 3 businesses that would be on one of the aggregators. So there's not really a huge benefit for us being on them. And I certainly don't like the thought of the 15 to 35% that gets added on. But no, it's nothing that we've ever looked at. We've had some newer platforms come in, Food Hub and stuff like that are trying to get us on. But again, it's either a monthly subscription or that for not always a guaranteed return, especially when people aren't used to or have these apps downloaded where we are.
Interesting. And in what percentage would you say, just roughly off the top of your head, is delivery to takeaway for you?
Our delivery would be about 7-8% of our orders. That's on a busy time, probably on average about 5%. But enough to make it worthwhile. We just recently put our delivery charge up 50p. Our drivers, it's the fuel price is going up in that. It just helps to cover them a little bit more.
So before that, you didn't have a delivery price?
There was.
Did?
Sorry, yeah, it's just increased by 50 pence, yeah.
Oh, and what is the whole price?
So £4.50 for delivery. And that's within a 3.5 mile radius.
Okay. Would you ever have like a stagger, so 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, a 3 different price?
Because we've got some country roads that just take us outside of Stonehaven, if they're going there, then it's £6. Because it takes up in like 2 slots that could have been opened up, but yeah, it's slightly extra if you want it outside of Stonehaven, but we don't cover a huge area because after that it's then a big 10-15 minute drive.
Okay, but the menu price itself is the same as takeaway, just plus that. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, interesting. And Charlie, you do all of them, and you do direct, don't you? So you do like you've got your own.
No, so we don't do our own anymore. Haven't done our own for a couple of years. We're paying drivers, insurances, everything like that, and it just wasn't. I think if people are ordering a delivery in Leicester, they're looking on the apps. So that's where they're going for it. Just found the volume was so much better through the apps. It used to be 10 to 20% was delivery. Now, this year, we're up to 20 to 30% is delivery. And I'm finding it's the only volume growth that seems to be quick. For me, for a few years, I had my prices at the exact price to make my margin back. And, our volume was low. We wasn't doing a huge amount of deliveries. So now I've just thought, well, let's just try it. Let's just play around with this. And now my prices are just 20%. I add on 20% to my in-store prices onto delivery apps. Now I know I'm losing margin, but my delivery orders have tripled. So, you got to think about volume. For me, where I took kebabs and burgers and things off my menu, I had capacity and I needed to fill that capacity or start getting rid of staff. Now, you don't really want to get rid of staff because, you still need, even on a quiet day, you still want a fryer and 2 servers, don't you? You still want a team together just in case someone rings in sick. You've got, you've got a bit of cover. On a Friday, we'll have a fryer and 3 or 4 servers. But the deliveries allowed me to fill that capacity quite quickly. Now, if you play the delivery game, you pick up orders fast. So get all your photos in order, get all your descriptions in order, and you start to go up the algorithm, get all your delivery times in order, pay for their adverts. They'll tell you what your return on it is, and it's normally pretty good. You normally get £5-6 per pound invested back. You got to keep an eye on that though, because it can eat into it a little bit too more. If you're getting anything below £4 on your ROI, you've got to start thinking, well, where's my actual profit in this? But I think for a lot of shops, especially inland shops, this is where the volume is going to be. So if you're not doing delivery, you're missing out on a huge chunk of customers. And it hasn't cannibalized the walk-in orders at all. I'm still getting the same amount of walk-in orders, but delivery is just that market that can just take you up that next level. There's some shops, I'm sure, in Leicester that are doing 50-50 now. And if you're doing 50% turnover on the delivery apps, that's a big chunk. But you've got to be clever. You've got to make sure you're selling your profitable items. You can afford to lose the margin on your sausage, your fish cakes, and chips, but you've got to be careful with your fish. If you sell a lot of mushy peas and curry sauce on it, that's great. But there's no point putting if you're selling a 16-ounce piece of fish on the aggregators and they're taking 30% and your VAT is 20% and you're only making a tiny margin anyway, there's no point. Take the large fish off the menu. Just have your regular fish on there. Have the high margin menu. And if you overprice yourselves on them, you get punished anyway because they'll lower you on the lists and whatever. And it's all about visibility. And it is just, I think, a fast way to volume.
I think you're right. I think it is a fast way to volume, but it is also, if you haven't got your numbers right, it's a fast way to losing money. I think because of your losses can grow very exponentially, because if you are giving away the large portion of fish, the large portion of chips, I think for a lower price and you're not factoring in that margin, I think you're in for a world of pain. I've seen it before. I remember over COVID, a lot of shops were saying, oh, well, I'm just doing what I can. I'm just being on there. I'm not going to pass on the 10%, the 20%, the 15%, whatever it is. But they dug themselves a real big hole, because I think those sort of customers that got used to it were thinking, oh, you know what? I'm not paying anymore for that. And I think in some ways, when it's digital, customers can be more ruthless because they don't know you. They just know that this is a brand. It's on Just Eat. It's on Uber Eats, whatever. I don't know them. I don't care about them. Unless they've learned about you through the takeaway, I think sometimes you can look like you're invisible to the end user, So, yeah, this is why it's really important to get the margins just right, I think.
Yeah, you've just got to really sit down and work it out, and just make sure you're putting your VAT to one side of it. That's where you're going to get caught out, because you take all this money in, and then by the time you've paid the platform fees and whatever, it's your VAT that will catch you out. So as long as you're putting that to one side, the rest of it should sort of take care of itself a little bit more.
It's an interesting one, because I know so many people are saying the same thing about that, and that, a few years ago, there was a bit more looser money cash in the system. And now with it all being mostly digital, you've got to be a lot more disciplined.
Yeah. There's no point charging your in-shop prices. What you also need to sit down and work out as well is, if you were paying a driver, would you be better off? And sort of aim for your prices to be that. Factor that in. Imagine that the 30% is what you would pay a driver, and then work your prices out around that. If you're paying £1,000 in commission, move into your own system. But if you're not, then and you can be bothered, is another thing, because employing 4 or 5 drivers is not an easy task. So you sort of need to take that into account as well. Okay, you're spending X amount on this commission, but if you had the money, would managing staff be any easier? Probably not.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point. I think the key difference as well is, I think aggregators will do a lot better where there's more chimney pots. They'll do better in cities. You've got more customers to lean into, but you're going to have more riders. It's in a cosmopolitan area. It is going to do better in that sense. I think I can see why Jamie does what he does, because it's in a much more remote area. There are less chimney pots, and it's something he can manage himself. And I think you touched on it earlier, Charlie. You said, know your area, know your customers. And I think this is really key. I think the key thing is now is not knowing your numbers, not knowing the area you're in, not understanding. You can't just copy the shop down the road and just do what they do. You've got to do your numbers independently, because everyone's got a different business. Whereas years ago, for the most part, most people would just go to the shop down the road, look at his prices or her price, and I'm going to do that, and it'll be 10p more or less. And you just can't do that now, because you don't know anything about their business anymore. There's so many more variables. It also makes me think about a question you brought up, Charlie, the other day, which is, are some shops areas just impossible to trading now? So elaborate a little bit on your thought process there.
Well, I just think for a long time we've had, and you've only got to look at the shops for sale, and a lot of shops that were doing, say they were doing £3,000 to £5,000 10 years ago, are still doing that now. They've just lost volume. And you've got to think, is there some areas and shops that, if they haven't worked in the 10 years previous, in the trading conditions we've got now, are they ever going to recover or be better? And I think, as negative as it is, I think some shops aren't what they are anymore. Same way we don't have a butcher's on every corner. Same way we don't have as many corner shops. It's just something. There has to be a reduction in shops, and there's a lot of places that just aren't going to work. If you're on a busy street with 5 chicken shops, 5 kebab shops, 5 whatever, are you actually going to do enough trade to keep that position? Are you going to be able to pay your £20,000 a year rent and you X amount of gas and electricity and have a couple of staff and be able to do it yourself and pay yourself a wage in which you could buy a house, go on holiday, buy a car? I just don't think some shops work anymore as fish and chip shops, whereas you used to be able to drop them into the middle of any estate and you could make a living.
What do you think of that, Jamie?
Yeah, no, I think that it's a very valid point that unfortunately that there is going to see a drop off in shops, and I think that it's just inevitable now. We do see a lot of shops having to close their doors, and it's not nice to see, but the climate that we're in now, it's sink or swim, and unfortunately not everyone is going to make it through.
On the flip side, just to be the optimist here, if a shop closes, does that not, right, if 1 out of 10 shops close, and let's say that's chip shops, or 1 out of 10 corner shops, 1 out of 10 of everything closes, does that not inherently lift the value of what's left behind? Because scarcity drives demand, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I don't see it as a bad thing. It's a bad thing for people who are in that position. But let's be honest, there's some operators in these shops that are really good. They can be cooking amazing fish and chips, doing a decent job promoting it. But if the location's not right and the community's not right, you're not going to make money. And it's not necessarily anyone's fault. It's just a shop that could have done well 15, 20 years ago just won't do that now. If you've not got a car park and you've not got access to chimney pots and you've not got a lunch trade like you might have used to have had where the school was, it's locations are changing and shops are changing. And as those shops drop off, you'd like to think that whatever they would do would go to the next shop that is perhaps in a slightly better position.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And it's not nice to, if anyone's going through a tough time, we're not making a mockery of it. It's just talking widely about the industry. And I think that's really important that, I know someone that recently gave up a shop, but, it was a short-term lease. It wasn't great. He never had a great day from the minute he got there. He's got 2 other shops, so he managed to absorb some of the losses. I'm sure he's still hit in the pocket down the line. But I think these are decisions that need to be made. You've got to get out sometimes and just say, you know what, this is hurting. We've got to get out and do something else. And I think this is the discipline you see from bigger companies. But also bigger companies can swallow it because they are bigger companies, they're corporations. But when it's a mom and pop shop, traditionally, when it's a husband and wife, when it's one person, it's hard to take that pain. It's hard. But I think that the conditions out there just aren't favourable at the moment for, not across the board, but I think that it just takes more discipline, and some shops won't make it even with that discipline. I know someone who did fantastic fish and chips, marketed it really well, and a Wetherspoons opened across the road. And
that's no one's fault. Well, it's Wetherspoons' fault, obviously, but it's not the operator's fault. They've done nothing wrong. And you see this with a lot of shops where they've done it for years and they've actually always done a pretty good job, pretty solid products. It just times have changed a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Jamie hit the nail on the head earlier. Customers care about what they want. And I think that is also true. And I think, whether it's a price, whether it's a product, whatever it is, they want what they want for what, however they want it. And customers feel like they're in demand, they're in play. They want what they want. So, just like we want better gas prices, better electric prices, better wheat prices, we want all of those things too. So let's finish it up with looking ahead over the next 12 months. If we were to sit down next May, what would you guys like to see? What worries you the most? What would you like to see by that point?
Well, for me, I think it's obviously we'd like to see stable commodity prices at least. Well, at least fish does seem to have stabled. Obviously, we'd like to see fish come down.
I was going to say this. Yeah, most people would disagree. Well, no, they'd agree that it's stable, but they'd like for it to come down. Yeah.
For me, I just don't see it. I think we've hit a point now. They might come down slightly, but I don't see it being a dramatic drop. But we'll see. What worries me is that potatoes are going to get expensive next year. We all know we've had a very, very cheap year. It's been it's been good on potatoes. We've had plenty of margin. So fingers crossed we have the same next year. But I just don't see it. If farmers have been hitting their pocket this year, there's no way we're going to get them as cheap next year. And that will push prices again. If we have to put 40, 50p on a bag of chips, well, all of a sudden we're knocking on the door of 14, 15 pounds for fish and chips for some people. And that's worrying. Also, staff having so much more power. Day one sick pay is the big one for me. If someone's hungover, and also the lack of clarity on the sick pay as well. I've not really dived deep into it, but I know that if a part-time staff member's off for a day or something, they can get, it's actually worth more to them than actually going in the shop sometimes, because it's done on a pro rata basis. And yeah, that's what worries me mostly, is that potato prices are going to jump and we're going to get screwed on staff.
I think I read somewhere the other day that around 27 to 30% of all fertilizer comes from the Middle East, and a lot of the other stuff comes. And a lot of the other stuff comes from Russia. But what happened was, when the Russia war happened, everyone diverted to get more from the Middle East because they've got cheap energy and cheaper labor. So that's generally how these things work, because why would you go to a country that's expensive? So obviously Germany had really good energy prices just before the Russia war. They were the main supplier alongside Russia for fertilizer. Well, then that happened. We can't buy the Russian stuff. The prices went up on the other stuff. So then now it's like, well, we got all these problems with the Hormuz Strait and everything. Well, that's not going to come out either. So it makes you wonder, like, what's going to let up? We just need something to let up. Yeah. Jamie, what are your thoughts, mate? I just wanted to bore you a little bit with fertilizer.
No, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, like Charlie said, I'd like to see fish prices come back down. Obviously, after spawning season, we should see better quality and a cheaper price. Potatoes, we've paid the same price all year round. That's £14 a bag, which I know doesn't sound cheap, but for us, when the average price was £15, £16 in previous years, it has actually come down. But yeah, next year, I know, speaking to our supplier and farmers, that it's going to have to go up, or they're going to go out of business.
Well, the worst thing you've got with potatoes is diesel. It's not even the potato. It's the fact that you can get 26 ton in a lorry, and that's coming straight up. I know we picked up 26 ton the other day. We do this 3-4 times a week. 3-4 times a month at the moment. This one route, it went up from, was it 450 to 750, give or take? Yeah. It's a huge increase. So imagine those potato suppliers are going to be screaming about that, and they'll be quick to move the price. So that's it. That's exactly it.
Because our supplier takes it to us, it takes it to their depot, and then they have to deliver it to us, and it does it. It adds on. That's what my supplier says. To take a lorry load, it was £1,000. That was last year. Now with the fuel prices, you're a hell of a lot more than that, and that's just to get them up here.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that potato prices in the next year are going to see quite a sharp increase. For me, gas and electricity, I've just renewed my contracts. Brilliant timing. But it's actually because 3 years ago we had the big Russian war and prices were at an all-time high. Even with everything that's happening in Iran, it's still come down, and I'm going to save thousands of pounds across the year on my gas and electricity. So yeah, with staff having that additional power, it's going to be scary to hire, and you're really going to want to try and stick with as little staff as you can get away with. Really, wages going up, it's as well as difficult. We pay all of our staff above minimum wage, but I've got someone leaving us this week to go work at a cafe for £16 an hour, just serving chips out of hatch. So it's difficult to compete with.
Well, those chips are going to be more expensive soon.
Well, that's it.
Are you too worried that you won't be able to touch up staff anymore? Because obviously the laws are stricter now, aren't they?
Yeah, some of that stuff.
Yeah, Matty's used to be really worried, but now the laws, they protect him now, so he's all right, bless him. Yeah.
That's the only reason I agreed to work with you still.
The perks. Yeah. No, I think, there just seems to be so many, the biggest thing, and I think you've touched on it, Jamie, but Charlie said the word, it's the uncertainty. That's what kills markets. It's really not price increases that really pee off people. It's uncertainty. And I think that's why at the beginning of this year, we saw consumers spend less because it was the uncertainty. It wasn't because of the war. It was because of the clarity around the war. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And I think once that happens, people just like, we've learned this since COVID, the minute there's any uncertainty, people spending, just they lock everything down.
They just batten down the hatches and think they make a rainy day fun, don't they? And they just
absolutely.
Who can blame them?
Yeah.
You know, who can blame them?
No. We all do it to some degree. We just do it on with different things. So, but obviously, when you've got a business, you wish people wouldn't do that, obviously, because why not? But it's just we all think for ourselves. But I think it's that uncertainty. The minute something is uncertain, people are just like, not spending. But that does start to peel back a bit. Like, so one of my customers in Cornwall said to me that the last bank holiday, the May Day one, was a terrible weekend for them. It was horrible. He said it was one of the worst ever in all his time of being down there. But he said this one was a bit better, a very good one. So it tells you that already consumers are starting to feel a bit like, well, you know what? If this is going to be like that, we've got to get out. We've got to have a life. We've got to have a holiday. And I think one good thing, if I'm going to be the optimist here, well, we're all being optimistic to be fair, but if I'm going to be optimistic is that with the Iran war and the uncertainty of being abroad and, you know, the uncertainty with the prices of the holidays, are people going to stay in the UK? And could it be a little bit of like the post-COVID effect? Could people just travel more in the UK? Diesel prices may put people off, but it's better than staying at home. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Be interesting to see how that plays out. So, yeah, if fish prices come down, potato prices might go up. I don't see fish prices coming down anytime soon. I think Charlie's right there. And also, I think that once a price hits a level, like your potato price, Jamie, I think it almost becomes the new norm. I think no one really shifts downwards too fast because it just becomes, well...
Yeah, the fish prices might stay for a while, but I don't see them going down.
I can't see vessel owners wanting it to go down, if I'm honest.
It's only like us. Once the price goes up, it's up, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we're not putting it down because I've not put the price of chips down because we've had a better year on potatoes. Granted, there's other factors at play, but you know, if fish suddenly dropped by £50 a case tomorrow, I'm not.
No, exactly.
That's where you create
the profit.
Yeah, or at least some money away for the next time it happens.
Yeah, and Charlie, I want to end on a note that you always tell me, like, and it's something that people forget. And yes, there's friendships in the industry with suppliers, especially, and keep your suppliers sweet, and they should keep you sweet. But you always say this thing, and I love it. You say it's my job to get fish for the best price they can, and it's their job to sell price for the highest price they can. And you know, I think sometimes we forget about that relationship. Like, so. It's not that they're trying to scalp you. It's just their job is to stay in business, and same as yours. And I think there should be a mutual appreciation between each party there. Everyone's just trying to get by.
Well, exactly. People might get annoyed at me asking for a discount or an offer or moving suppliers or trying different things. But at the end of the day, that's my job. And their job is to keep me happy, to get me to spend as much as possible with them. And you know, I've got a lot of respect for them doing that, and I think it works both ways.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah. On that note, guys, I think we've hit everything on our topic list, and we've probably missed the odd thing, but it flowed in for other things. Anything we've missed? Anything I should be asking that I didn't ask?
Fair bit. I think that's the first 5 months of the year covered. Who knows what the next 5 will bring?
Well, hopefully good. We've set the tone. So, guys, thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk again soon.
Perfect.
Let's do this. Let's do this next May.
Yeah.
Talk to you later, guys.
Cheers, guys. See you later.